A few months ago, I was checking my email and there was something from Vincent Musi, and he said, "Would you be interested in being one of our master photographer presenters?" And I was like, what? I was just like, this must be a mistake. I was just like, how do these people even know my name? So I was really tickled and honored, because I feel like sometimes I work in a vacuum. And it's really nice to know that the signal is getting out and people are paying attention. So he contacted me and I was like, yeah, of course. I would love to. What do you need? How soon? I'll even go beyond that and say, I've been to photography festivals in Europe. That is the main place where we would have to travel. I was part of the Vies pour l'Image for many years, going there, and then the Arles, and there was nothing like that in the US, which I thought was criminal. We have the biggest photo market in the world and no place to really get together. And one of the things I love is the opportunity to meet my peers, my idols, and share conversation, or even just say hello and thank you for inspiring me. So for professionals, it's a great sort of gathering of the tribe. It kind of recharges your batteries a little and says, yes, you're not just banging your head against the wall doing what you do. What we do is a very solitary endeavor, and so any chance to have some community is really cherished. And for the up-and-coming photographers, it's a chance to meet people who are making it happen, to hear about some of our struggles, some of our triumphs, the things that keep us going in tough times. And it really, I hope, is an educational thing as well as motivational for people who are just thinking that this might be something they want to do with their life. I think it's both. I take great pride in, I have a rule that if it takes more than 1 minute in Photoshop to adjust the image, I won't use it. And I still stick to that. When I shoot with my cameras, I am turning off everything so that it's shooting just what I'm seeing. I'm not asking it to saturate or contrast or anything. I don't use filters. I only have a UV filter to protect the lens. So what is important to me as an artist, actually, is to convey how frickin' amazing nature is without any manipulation. That these things exist as they are and how amazing and awesome they are. So it's not just a point of pride, but it's a point of communication for me. I need people to really go, how can that be? And really rethink what they think they know about this planet and their own lives. I was raised part of the Shinnecock Nation, which is a small fishing tribe on Long Island near Southampton. And my grandfather went to great pains to educate us from very young children, not just to teach us to believe that we are interconnected with everything, but to show us how we were interconnected. Once he took us out into a green field that was a very hot summer day. There was no clouds in the sky, and he just had us sit there. And it was quite warm, and we started to perspire, and after a while, we were really starting to wilt a little, and he said, "Look up in the sky." And we looked up and this little white tuft of clouds started to appear, and he said, "That's your sweat. That's you up there in that cloud. And that cloud will become rain, which will feed the grass, which will feed the animals, which will feed us." And it was a really good example or demonstration of how that interconnection works, how everything was related, how there was no separateness, and how that's very much an illusion. And I think as a young person, you tend to really take for granted the things that are shown to you and shared with you as you grow up. And not until you're older and able to reflect upon those things and really see them in practice do they sort of resonate, and you go, oh yes. Many things in my life have sort of triggered these reminders of that. And in my life, I think I got to a point where I was like, people need to be reminded of this. We will not survive as a species if we do not remember this very important fact. We do not operate separate from the rest of this ecosystem we call Earth. We're very much integrated, and if anything, we have shown how much we can affect it, whether it's an oil spill or an extinction of species due to something that we did. It's very much something that we should be aware of, and you cannot ignore it, or doing so is really folly. Well, it's funny because sometimes people actually ask me, how do I light my icebergs? Which I was really tickled by that, because I mean, some of these icebergs are hundreds of feet high out of the water, and many are like the size of city blocks, if not cities themselves. The largest iceberg I ever tried to photograph was 12 miles wide by 24 miles long. It's just not possible. And so the ideal conditions are a beautiful sculptural iceberg that I can get into a small Zodiac with my camera and go around it and close, and it's safe, it's a stable berg. The thing is, these things are so unpredictable, and depending on the conditions and where you are, you have to be aware. There are moments when the sea goes very calm, when there's no wind at all, and it's still like a mirror. And if you can move slowly enough with a Zodiac, when you're on the big ship, people don't stop for you and say, okay, take a picture. You have to be on and looking, and you don't get a second chance. It's not like you get to set it up and say, oh, can we go here? But when you're in a Zodiac, you have a little bit more control. And when it's that glass still, you can get these amazing reflections of the icebergs, especially when it's overcast, and it's a very specific type of cloud. It's a low-hanging ceiling. What ends up happening is it acts like a softbox. The light starts to bounce off the iceberg, and there's this dark, stormy quality. That's when the colors happen, that's when the light happens, that's when the reflections happen, and you just get magic. You really just, they can glow. They do things that you're like, how is that possible? Neon blues emitted from the inside with no sun shining. You're like, how is this happening? So those are really the ideal conditions from a Zodiac, which is a small rubber boat that Jacques Cousteau invented. It's a very serendipitous affair. I have never, ever had a good idea on my own. I swear, a door opens and I stumble through it, and the next thing I know, it's the most amazing adventure. And that's what happened with the icebergs and being in the Arctic and the Antarctic. It was very serendipitous. It all started because I gave up my seat on an oversold flight from Oakland to LA. If someone had told me, if you give up this seat and you take this free round trip ticket, your life is going to change in a way that you have no idea, I would never have believed that it was possible. But when I gave up that seat, I got a free round-trip ticket. It was Alaska Airlines, and I had never been to Alaska, and I was like, why not? So I decided, but no, it wasn't enough just to go to Alaska. I had to go as far as I could. So I decided to go to a place called Kotzebue, which is on the Bering Sea, where the supposed land bridge was between Siberia and North America. And being a native, I was fascinated by this idea that we had migrated across that bridge. So I thought I'd try and do a reverse commute. And so I went up there knowing very little. I just bought some warm clothes, and which the airline lost. So when I arrived, I just had a polar fleece on and some slip-on shoes, and it was -30. But the local women were beautiful Inuit women, and they took pity on me and completely outfitted me in their polar Arctic seal jackets, boots, hats. I was set. And one day I just started to walk out on the frozen sea. It was a very stupid, and I don't try this at home. It was a very naive thing to do, but that experience was a major trigger for everything that my grandfather had been trying to communicate to me as a child, showing me how literally insignificant I was in the scale of this time and space of this planet as an organism. And yet the fact that I could stand there on the ice and even think about that how much a miracle it was. And so I came back with this idea really of understanding I was standing on my rock in space, my planet, that no one is born in outer space. All of us are made of the material of this planet. All of us will return. And I came back with this and I told my boyfriend's mother, and she was like, oh, Camille, you're so adventurous. So she decided she had to go check it out for herself. And when she came back from the actual North Pole, she took a Russian nuclear-powered ship. She said she had the same exact experience, and it had changed her, and she wanted to write about it. And she wanted to write about me because I had been the inspiration for this. She carted us up to Svalbard, which I had never even heard of, and got us on this little icebreaker. In between the time of me walking on the ice and going to Svalbard, September 11th happened. And I grew up in New York. I went to the FAME High School of Music and the Arts. And one of the jobs I had as a teenager was as a bike messenger. So I would deliver packages to the World Trade Center all the time. I knew the space, the plaza, very personally, very physically. And when they fell, I was sitting holding my new, almost 2-year-old, thinking she would never know those buildings in the way that I did. And it was the first time I understood the importance of a photograph as a historic document, that it was proof that these buildings had existed. And a few months later, as we were target bombing some place, I just sat thinking, what can I do to counter this? There needs to be a different story being told about how amazing this planet is, how amazing and beautiful life is. And I swear, as I sat on the couch, a little switch was activated in me where it was sort of like, it's time, get off the couch and pick up the camera and do something. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I needed to do something. So I picked up the camera, and at the same time, my boyfriend's mother was saying, all right, we're going up to Svalbard. So I took all these cameras with me to Svalbard because now I was on a mission. I didn't know what the mission was, but there we were in the Arctic, and that's where it started. When we broke the ice with the ship, I don't know if you saw the video, but I'm like going, woo! Because it was just so like, oh my God, it was amazing. I literally fell in love as we were breaking this sea ice, and I was hooked. I was like, more, happy, thank you, more please. So that's how it started. But I don't have ideas. Not once did I ever sit down and go, I think I'll make a series of icebergs. It just evolved. And even with the storm chasing, that was very serendipitous. My daughter said, Mom, you should do that. And 3 days later, I was doing it. The wolf thing that I just started, I got a dog that happens to look like a wolf, and I was getting all this energy, this people talking to me about wolves and hybrids, and so I had to find out, and now it's a project. So I think curiosity is something that it has to be something I'm curious about. It has to be something that gives me joy, and it has to be interesting. Yeah. I'm working on 2 projects simultaneously. I do believe that long-term projects are really the only way for me. I think time is really important. And so the storm chasing is something that I started in 2008, and I'll probably do that. It's hard to stop. It's so, it's so amazing. And now I'm just coming online with the wolves. So that will be another one. I'm just my first encounter with a wolf recently has got me very excited about the possibilities and what the project will become. It turns out that there are wolf sanctuaries literally all over the country, and there are people that own wolf hybrids as pets, which isn't necessarily a great idea, but that's part of this story, is this controversy between wild and pet. And you know, being mixed race myself, I feel a bit of a hybrid where I don't quite fit in any of the worlds that ethnically I belong to. I am a hybrid. And so I really resonate with these wolves of being of these 2 worlds but not belonging in any.